The midday rush outside the financial district of downtown Chicago was a chaotic symphony of honking horns, hurried footsteps, and the rich, mouth-watering aroma of sizzling garlic and spices pouring from Bella's Bistro, a modest, stainless steel food truck parked right on the corner of Michigan Avenue. Inside the cramped kitchen, 24-year-old Maya wiped a bead of sweat from her forehead with the back of her wrist, her fingers moving with lightning speed as she flipped gourmet panini sandwiches and plated artisan street tacos. Maya was the heart and soul of the truck, working 14-hour shifts 7 days a week. She poured her entire life savings and every ounce of her passion into the business, fighting desperately to keep it afloat after her father's passing left her drowning in medical debt. Despite her exhaustion, her kind eyes and gentle smile were well known to the regular office workers who lined up daily for her famous cooking. The queue in front of the truck spilled out onto the sidewalk, packed tightly with impeccably dressed corporate executives, junior analysts clutching expensive briefcases, and wealthy tourists sporting designer sunglasses. Right near the front of the line stood David Sterling. At 32, David was the enigmatic, billionaire tech mogul behind Sterling Global Innovations, a towering digital infrastructure empire. Dressed in a bespoke charcoal gray Italian suit that screamed quiet luxury, David looked entirely out of place amid the casual street food vendors. Yet, for reasons even he couldn't fully explain, he found himself standing in the humid afternoon air, waiting patiently behind a talkative group of stockbrokers. His expression was cold, guarded, and heavily masked by the stress of an impending hostile takeover battle and the relentless pressure of the board of directors demanding higher profit margins. As the customer ahead of him stepped away with a brown paper bag, David took a step forward, his eyes fixed on his smartphone screen where a multi-million-dollar stock transfer was loading. He didn't look up as he reached the service window. Maya, busy tossing a fresh batch of cilantro into a mixing bowl, didn't immediately notice the new customer standing in her shadow. "Next, please. What can I get started for you today?" Maya called out cheerfully, her voice melodic and bright, cutting through the urban noise. When David didn't respond right away, still engrossed in his phone, a sharply dressed junior executive standing right behind him in line let out an arrogant, condescending scoff. "Hey, street vendor," the executive barked loudly, stepping forward and shoving his hand past David's shoulder to slam a crumpled $5 bill onto the counter. "Stop daydreaming and hurry up. Mr. Sterling's time is far too valuable to waste standing behind a food truck window. Give us 2 coffees, black, and move it." Maya paused, her hands freezing over the mixing bowl. She slowly looked up from her work, her eyes shifting past the rude executive to lock onto the well-dressed man standing silently in front of him. David Sterling remained completely motionless, his phone still gripped tightly in his hand, neither confirming nor denying the executive's arrogant remark. He simply stared down at the menu board, entirely indifferent, treating Maya as if she were nothing more than an inanimate fixture of the street corner, beneath basic human acknowledgement. The sheer disrespect stung sharply, reminding Maya of 100 other privileged days when people looked right through her struggle as if poverty was a contagious disease. A quiet fire ignited in her chest, but instead of losing her temper, she straightened her posture, wiped her hands on her clean apron, and met David's cold, detached gaze with unyielding, dignified poise. "I'm sorry, sir," Maya said, her voice dropping all its previous cheerfulness, replaced instead by a calm, crystal-clear authority that made the arrogant executive behind David flinch. "My food truck serves anyone who respects the people working inside it. But arrogance, impatience, and treating human beings like obstacles? That's something I don't serve here at any price. Step aside, please, and let someone who actually appreciates a decent meal take your place in line." A collective gasp echoed through the surrounding crowd. The junior executive's face turned an ugly shade of crimson, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water as he sputtered in absolute disbelief. "Are you out of your mind?" the executive roared, pointing a trembling finger at her. "Do you have any idea who you are talking to? This is David Sterling. He could buy this entire rusted truck and turn it into a parking lot before lunch is even over. Apologize right now, or you'll never sell another sandwich in this city." David finally lowered his smartphone, the glowing screen locking and fading to black. For For the first time since stepping up to the window, he slowly raised his head, fixing his deep, piercing gray eyes directly on Maya. The air around the food truck seemed to grow instantly heavy, the ambient street noise fading into a distant hum as the two of them locked eyes in a tense, silent standoff. The executive smiled smugly, expecting David to completely humiliate the young girl, demand her health permits, and crush her small business into dust. Instead, a strange, complex expression flickered across David's chiseled features, a mixture of profound shock, lingering nostalgia, and an unexpected, softening warmth that completely shattered his icy corporate armor. He stared at the smudge of flour on Maya's cheek, the determined tilt of her chin, and the fiery spark in her eyes. Without breaking eye contact, David slowly stepped forward, pushing past his furious associate until he was standing flush against the stainless steel serving counter. He leaned in close, ignoring the gasps of the onlookers, and lowered his voice into a soft, gravelly whisper that only Maya could hear over the hiss of the flat-top grill. "Still remember me, Maya?" David murmured softly, a faint, genuine smile breaking through the hard lines of his face. Maya's breath hitched in her throat. The casual corporate swagger vanished from her mind as time violently rewound 12 years into the past, back to a cold, desolate rainy night outside a rundown community college library in Ohio, where an impoverished, starving teenage boy had sat shivering on a concrete bench, too proud to ask for help, until a kind-hearted high school girl named Maya walked up, silently handed him her own warm lunch packet and a hot cup of tea, and whispered, "Never let a temporary storm make you forget your worth." That single act of radical, selfless kindness had changed the trajectory of David Sterling's entire life, giving him the courage to pull himself out of the gutters of poverty and build an empire. But as he stood there looking at her, he realized with a sickening jolt of guilt that the fierce, independent woman standing before him was drowning under the crushing weight of the world, while he had spent years surrounded by wealth, forgetting the very soul that saved him. "You," Maya whispered, her eyes widening in sudden, stunned recognition as the past collided violently with the present. Before she could speak another word, David turned around, completely ignoring his stunned associates, and slammed a heavy, black leather briefcase onto the service counter with a resounding thud. He popped the latches open, revealing rows of thick, banded bundles of cash alongside a legally binding corporate document. "Cancel all my afternoon meetings," David instructed his bewildered chief legal counsel, who was frantically pushing through the crowd behind him. He turned back to Maya, his eyes shining with a rare, fierce intensity. "I'm not here to buy your truck, Maya. I'm here to invest every single cent required to take Bella's Bistro nationwide. But more importantly, I'm here to finally repay a debt I've owed for 12 years. The crowd fell completely silent as the reality of the moment set in. The arrogant executive stood frozen, his career effectively ended in a single afternoon by his own blindness, while Maya stood tall behind her counter, tears shimmering in her eyes. She looked at the billionaire who had once been a shivering boy, realizing that true wealth was never measured by bank accounts, but by the kindness you plant in the world, a kindness that always finds its way back when you least expect it.